4th of July, kids. I don't know if we shot off fireworks or not. Maybe not. We live in the middle of the woods, and, you know, that can kind of be a little sketchy sometimes when you're shooting off fire projectiles and you're surrounded by trees. But happy 4th of July to also all of you out there that are listening in America. If you're not listening in America, which a few of you are not, first off, thank you so much. I don't know why you've chosen to follow along with such a person as us here in Tennessee, but really, thank you so much for listening. In America, we've just got done celebrating July the 4th, and I thought that this would be a good time to, I guess, celebrate American ingenuity that I feel like became famous for at a time with the review of Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. Jason Crockett's going to join me, and this was a book that we had so much fun reading together. You know, I think that one thing I love about reading with friends is you get these little inside jokes that you bring up to each other and you can really have a good time with and laugh about. But I also think that that's a mark of a good book. You know, I think when we can look at someone and say, hey, that's H.H. Holmes, or hey, that's this character, or that's John Smith, or that's Marie Polotkin, or et cetera, man, I just think that that is the mark of a good book. They've created characters that are real, or they've presented them as relatable, someone that you can identify. And with this being nonfiction, yes, H.H. Holmes was a real person. The people that we're going to talk about this story were real people, but Erik Larson does a good job of presenting all the details to us, and he does a good job of letting us know that these were real people and these are people that we can still identify. Hopefully you can't identify that many H.H. Holmes, because if you can, you need to leave your area ASAP. Okay. But this is a retelling of the 1893 Chicago's World's Fair, where basically America didn't like that Paris and France got all the attention from their World's Fair where the Eiffel Tower was presented, and they wanted to be back on top. And so there's just this idea of, like I said, American ingenuity. How can we get ourselves, how can we create the best and at good quality? And so that is what this story's about, and I thought it was just fitting to do it the week of the 4th. So again, happy 4th of July to all my fellow Americans. Happy Independence Day. And without keeping you waiting, here is The Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. I know it's been, I guess a couple years since we read this.
2 years.
Do you care to try to give us a synopsis on it?
Devil in the White City is a nonfiction recounting of a two-sided story. One of Mr. Burnham and the Chicago World's Fair, and the other of Mr. H.H. Holmes, America's first serial killer, and how actually the two stories overlap. That this wonderful, majestic exposition of all the great things that America can do, that the world could be seeing from America, overlapping with a living monster who is consuming woman after woman after woman, and eventually children too, and then cranking them out into skeletons, all within the same few blocks of space in America, so that you have this balance of greatness and ingenuity marred up with the depravity and evil of humanity.
I think something that you talked about was something that I noticed, and I've got it on here on the first thing for us. The whole reason of this World's Fair was because the Parisian one that we just learned was 1889 with the Eiffel Tower was so popular, and everybody was talking about how so ahead of the game France was, that America felt like we've got to make our statement here, which I feel like is still a characteristic of our country.
Oh, 1,000,000,000%.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Do you think that's because that we inherited a country that expanded over the entire continent, and that there is just something so massive about the North American experience that has, I don't know, elevated egos, elevated the mindset that we're more than just a country. We're more than just I mean, Europeans come to America sometimes and think, oh, well, we're here for 5 days. I'm going to see Disneyland. I'm going to see the Grand Canyon. I'm going to see the Statue of Liberty. And it's like, you're talking about 3,200 miles of difference between those destinations. You really need to limit that. But that the American experience is so wide. Maybe there's something about the size of our country and our continent that has exaggerated the size of our egos as well.
Do you think too, like I've always wondered this because, you know how Australia was like a prison colony.
Yeah.
I've always wondered, are those people kind of rowdy? You know, I don't really know any Australians. That's a group of people I've never personally came into contact with.
Right.
You know, I mean, we've met Europeans and people from this side of the world, but I've never met an Australian, so I don't know. But I wonder if it's this idea of everyone came over here originally with this big idea of this American dream of innovation, of riches, of creating something that is the best. And I just wonder if that's just kind of ingrained in a lot of us.
Yeah.
You know?
Especially with we're a relatively young country and that we have managed to achieve and accrue so much in such a short period of time. If you even limited it to just 200 years, what was France? What was Germany? What was Italy? What were they able to accomplish in the first 200 years of their span? I mean, you talk about something like the Roman Republic, or you look elsewhere. Alexander the Great supposedly conquered the known world for that span of the world in just such a short, rapid amount of time and became Alexander the Great. So if a country like the United States managed to achieve and conquer or exert such influence over so much in such a short amount of time, that probably adds to a great exaggerated ego as well. I want to be careful not to stereotype Australians and say,
you're right. My bad.
Because I was like, Italians aren't whatever loud because it's so hot. I don't want to be like that. But I don't mind stereotyping Americans one bit because, you can't make who best to make fun of Americans other than an American. But we certainly have that huge chip on our shoulder, right? Especially for so long we called ourselves the leaders of the free world. I mean, what kind of ego is that?
Yeah.
And it does remind me how in Dracula, Bram Stoker has Dr. Van Helsing thinking about Quincy P. Morris and how he calls him this great American moral Viking and how he looks forward to the day that more giant American Vikings like Quincy P. Morris, that there should be more of that coming from America. And I do like that noble aspect of us being these loud, outspoken, but virtuous Americans. And I would like to see more of them. I don't know that I see so much of that. I would like to see more of them. But Americans, I don't know. Maybe it's because there's so much space. Maybe it's because there's so much territory. Maybe it's because there's so much sky that our voices just get so loud. Because you always know an American. You leave the country, you always know an American. They're always going to be so loud. They're always going to be loud in their clothing, loud in their volume, loud in their taking up of space. That's American.
I just think it's interesting. It is kind of crazy when you think about it, how young our country is relative to others and how we have become, I guess, a world leader so quickly,
Right.
and so much. I mean, not just politically, but innovatively. You think about Silicon Valley and stuff like that, the space race, stuff like that. And also it's, Olympic sports and other things like that.
Absolutely.
It's almost like a Spartan culture to an extent. Do you think, I've always thought that, especially with sports, like our athletics, we value that, I think, so much more than other countries do.
In a lot of ways, yeah. I mean, I see that from a high school level. You think about what gets funding or what gets attention. Certainly your high-selling sports, even though we say academics is what we're chiefly here for, where does the money go to?
Yeah. But do you think? I think that goes into that what you were talking about, that ego thing.
That ego and achievement. Oh yeah,
yeah. with the sports and stuff.
There are churches in England that are older than the United States as a country, but yeah, there's so much about that need to prove ourselves, or that need to be seen as Americans.
Yeah.
That was something that I had written down on the rundown that you had asked about. Is this so, like, essentially, quintessentially American, this need to achieve? If we're really going to say a phrase like "Make America Great Again," that is the America that I want to see more of again. We are innovators in plenty of ways. There's new technology coming out every day, right? Faster and faster. But I kind of miss the idea of there being such pageantry about what great exposition, what great innovation. Look at these new foods and new things, the wonderment of it all. And that it is so classily displayed and put on for the entire world. And it is supposed to be a good, healthy dose of competition, not lording it over everybody that we are so much better than you and you should get down on your knees to us. But, I mean, a good, healthy dose of challenge and competition to say, we are inventing this. We're bringing this to the world next year. And I don't want our country to slide backward. That's the kind of leap forward I would like to see more put on display.
Do you think that pageantry you were talking about, do you think that that's kind of disappeared because the world has gotten, I guess, so much faster? You know, our attention spans are so short because of this innovation in technology. And it goes in that Fahrenheit 451 stuff. We've gotten so far ahead that we've almost reverted backwards to an extent. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do worry about that, you know. But you also bring it up, and maybe it's because it's on display 24 hours a day. Because we have so much instantaneous technological viewing of everything in our social media and everything, that kind of innovation is always on display. It's not something that, you know, we're going to wait every 5 years or 10 years to see an expo come through a country somewhere that's going to showcase those things, because we can click on it and immediately see it right now. It's going to be on the news tonight. It's going to be in your pocket 6 weeks from now. There's a new Nintendo, Switch coming out. And there's no waiting around for this new magical device because it's so quickly there and produced for you.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of when I bought my PlayStation 5. I bought it, and then I saw an article that was like, this could be on the next PlayStation 6. I was like, oh my gosh, I just now got the money to buy a PlayStation 5.
If we're talking about video games, I wonder how innovative the new Switch 2 is really going to be compared to the Switch 1.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like, I feel like size is going to be marginally different. Controllers are going to be marginally different. But really, when you talk about the experience, the Switch did such an amazing job in ways that the Wii and the Wii U didn't, or even the DS or the Game Boy Color. The Switch really made such a great gaming experience happen that the Switch 2 feels just like a mild upgrade. Yeah. It's like getting a new iPhone that's really just the same as your own iPhone, except a little bit bigger.
Yeah. I wonder if like the capacity to play some of these larger titles will be, I would think that would be like the next step for that.
That would be really cool to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily going to change my gaming experience so much. Maybe like VR does that. Like, the Oculus gives you a different gaming experience that a Switch or a PS5 doesn't. What's the new gaming experience after that? I don't know. Maybe you hit certain walls of innovation, and maybe that precludes us from having that instantaneous gratification of, here's the next new product.
Well, I think too, technology as far as tech goes for us has grown so rapidly. I know for me, when I was a kid, we went from Super Nintendo, that was the first thing that I had, to now what we're playing now, where people are mistaking some of these college football games for the real thing, or even for us, the cell phone, we went from literally a phone with the game Snake on it to mini computers in our pockets. And things have just, I think, it's just almost irrelevant when something new comes out because we are expectant of it. I think maybe that's what it is. The expectations have changed. We've innovated on the tech stuff so fast and so rapidly that people just expect what's your new next big thing, and we're not really amazed when that comes out.
I can't remember the last time I was really amazed by a new iPhone. I was telling my senior class about that the other day, that my first job was teaching at a technical school, and I was supposed to teach a class in typing, computer science, and one English class. And I wanted to make my computer science class fun, so I would start showing them a PowerPoint on every Friday about, here's the new coming technology. And this was just before the Apple iPhone. And I remember everybody thinking, there's no way that I'm going to love a phone that has a touch screen without actual buttons. How do you even type? It's not even real buttons.
Yeah.
Or showing off this tiny little camera that's about the size of my thumb. And now I'm like, geez, that's giant compared to some of the things that we have.
Yeah. Well, I had the first chocolate that came out, and I went through about 4 of those that I had to take to Verizon because the touchscreen wouldn't work on it. Yeah. And I remember thinking, I'll never get a touchscreen phone. And now I don't really have a choice, do I?
No, you really don't. I remember getting a BlackBerry and thinking, ooh, this will be neat. And my BlackBerry was awful. I hated it.
Yeah.
But the iPhone felt like such a clean upgrade. But now, I remember at Christmas we were looking, and it's like, here comes the new iPhone. Really, what's the big deal difference? And all the reviews said, keep the one you've got now. You're going to like it just as much.
Yeah. I guess that kind of leads into the next, well, not the next point, but a point we've got on here of the White City being just a symbol, I feel like, of waste to an extent. There's nothing there anymore. And they went through all this expense and work and trouble for something that doesn't exist anymore. And you're talking about these iPhones, you and I don't even know what number of iPhone I have. I just know my SIM card fried on the way to Hilton Head, and I had to get a new one when we went down there. But I do have someone in my family who gets the newest iPhone every year it comes out, and it's just kind of like, why, And I feel like the White City kind of falls into that. It's just another example of that.
I had to look up which one I have because I couldn't even tell you.
Oh, I don't know.
I have the 12 Pro Max, and the 13 Pro Max was like, no big deal.
Yeah.
Yes. It is an extravagant waste for something that's only going to be there so temporary and fleeting and then be gone. And all of the structures that you've built are going to have to be torn down. And what are you going to do with all of everything? But isn't that also part of the dream? Is that the dream is so temporary and it's only going to be something you look back on with such fond memories of getting to be there. I had written down on the notes here, such a colossal waste. Compared to what? Today?
Yeah.
Because we are such an incredibly wasteful society today still.
Yeah.
I'm looking around. I opened up a product this morning and it was wrapped in layer of plastic after plastic after plastic. To do what with? Did I really need that much plastic wrapping up whatever plastic container I was already opening? And we are such a wasteful society. All of that's going to be sitting in a landfill for thousands of years, whereas Mr. Burnham's structures were at least capable of burning.
Disappearing.
You can at least do that with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does feel like an extravagant waste and one that they weren't necessarily cognizant of at the time. You don't really think about what's going to have to be done with it afterward.
Well, I think that goes back to something we talked about, I think, on our Butcher's Crossing episode, where I think at this time period, and it made me think about the time period that we're existing in right now, they were so concerned on how much human achievement can we get. We weren't really concerned with the after effects,
Yeah.
How much can we achieve as Americans with this World's Fair to prove that we're better than France,
Oh, yeah.
That we're not really concerned with what's left after that. And that was, I was telling you about how there was all that deforestation to build these enormous train structures to cross these big valleys, and you think about, wow, that is a human achievement. But now some of those don't exist, and we're still rehabilitating these forests, I just wonder what our landscape is going to look like. Anyways,
which landscape? The one we currently inhabit?
I guess, what would it be? Would it be like our tech landscape or our data or our personal privacy? Or what would that,
I take some comfort in the morbid idea that if humanity, as destructive and imposing as it has been upon our natural landscape, if it did come to a stop, that from what we see about nature itself being so resilient, that eventually, on a long enough timeline, nature reclaims almost all of the human footprint. I wonder about our data, though. I wonder about other lasting impacts. Do you know what would be the very last vestige of the human footprint to exist? Because eventually skyscrapers would be torn down or earthquaked down or whatever. Vines are going to creep over stuff. Even things that have gone to the Challenger Deep of the Marianas Trench are going to eventually break apart or whatever. The human footprint on the moon is going to last undisturbed for millions and millions and millions of years. And that's not even on planet Earth that we have reached beyond our planet to. But
did we really get on the moon? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
If you want to believe that, do your own research. It's all I can say.
But you say that, but there's an example of American human achievement. I mean, yes, Americans were the first, and it was a great achievement for us as a country, but also for mankind, as Neil Armstrong said.
Right.
We got up there, and that's, I guess, almost eternal until Apophis comes through.
Ooh, I was telling my class about Apophis yesterday. It also, not to be cynical and not to be jaded or even Debbie Downer, but I've had this thought frequently over the years of you think about societies and their rise and fall, and if America had such a meteoric rise, does it have such an equally meteoric collapse afterward or decline afterward? And if Americans were the first to put boots onto the moon and Mars, and that we planted our flag there, will we be carrying that flag into the stars? Will that last for, centuries and millennia afterward? Or will it be other nations, other countries? And you hear about China, you hear about India making their own efforts into space, their own forays into whatever with an International Space Station or such of their own. America does seem to be in a bit of a period where we're pulling back that effort into the world, whether it's with revoking USAID or other efforts that we're pulling back into this America first kind of let's shelter this zone. And that surrenders whatever frontier you've got to other powers who are going to reach for it. Does that put America into a technological, an innovative conquest kind of decline or what? It is, I'm sure, a natural process in all societies, all living things, that you hit plateaus, that you have decline. But if you think about innovative technological plateaus, does there come a point where we can only innovate so much in some areas? And with whatever we know right now, you just can't produce a faster blank. You can't produce a better blank right now. But surely there are other areas, other windows where you can improve and showcase that majesty.
I don't remember the specifics of the scientific investigation that they were doing, but they had a predictive model for what they thought that they were going to find. And the question was brought up, well, if you're so certain on that, why are we not there yet? And the scientists answered, well, the technology's not been created, so I'm just going to say this is what's going to be there when the technology gets there. It kind of reminds me of that. We've kind of hit this plateau, and we're waiting for more science to increase technology. So.
The Fermi paradox of, well, why, if there really are so many different stars and habitable worlds that are out there, how come we've never heard from anything else out there? And maybe it's because we're surrounded by so much emptiness that, galactically speaking, we kind of live in a desert where there isn't life around us, or that it's so far away we aren't able to detect it, and they're looking at us wondering, why is there nothing there? Maybe in a technological, innovative way, that's kind of true too, is that you just hit these dead zones where the technology's not able to see beyond whatever yet, or not able to innovate beyond whatever yet.
Yeah. I think that, speaking of innovation, I think that for me, I enjoyed the parts about the Ferris wheel in this book.
Yeah,
it was really
absolutely.
interesting to me. It is kind of mind-boggling to me when I read it that they were so impressed by this Ferris wheel, because for us it's so common. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have 2 Ferris wheels at our fair sometimes, and I know that they're not on the same scale as the original Ferris wheel, but I just thought it was interesting of all the proposals that were brought to them, that was the one that they settled on. But I really enjoyed reading about the Ferris wheel.
Yeah, and it also really steamed me when they even went to Eiffel and were like, okay, we got to have something to outdo the Eiffel Tower. Let's just go back to him. And that chapped people of, no, why are we going to a French? Why are we going back to him? And that Eiffel was like, I got you. And then what did he unveil? But Eiffel Tower Part 2, a little bit bigger. And it's like, nah, never mind.
And for my next trick,
that's like when these kids, you give them an assignment to write an essay about a career, and they're like, ooh, I already wrote one of these for Coach Haston. Maybe I'll just use it and change a few things on it. Eiffel did the same thing.
Yeah. It was, I guess, original, but I listed some of these on here because I wanted to ask you. There were other ideas that were brought up. You had the tower that was like 9,000 foot tall, which had the elevator on it. Which, you think about that, that's what, almost 2 miles tall.
Oh, yeah.
That's tall.
Right.
They had I remember reading about the structure that would go up to the top of this tower, and then they would ride these toboggans to like New York City. The lengths that they had for these St. Louis, New York City. And then they just had like a good old log tower that was just a couple of feet taller than the Eiffel Tower. Which one of those is your favorite?
Are you telling me you don't think toboggan tower is a legitimate, practical idea? You don't think we can capitalize on this?
I'm just thinking about, especially when I read that, I can remember reading that thinking, what would that person have done when they green lighted that? Now, we're going to go with yours.
Right.
Well,
I only drew it out. I feel like, so it's been a while since I'd read this part, but I feel like that was also a startling part to Burnham and the others of when the guy pitched them the idea was like, just listen, hear me out. It's a tower that we're going to toboggan back to New York on. And just the thought of strapping people into these little canoes, and you're going to bundle them up, and no, they'll be fine. And then we're just going to give them a shove, and they're going to ride back. No! I can just see all the chaos ensuing afterward. That part did crack me up. I like getting to look backward at these horrible, terrible, not practical ideas and thinking, man, what were they thinking, you know?
I also like to think, though, what if that would have happened? Because I think of the infrastructure behind that to get a toboggan from Chicago to New York. The type of, I mean, you would have to be at an incline almost the whole entire way down.
Well, the physics of it seems utterly impossible, too. I can remember years ago hearing this loud crash in my son's bedroom. He's going to love hearing this. And immediately I ran back there, boom, 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 boom. And when I get to his room, I see my son splat in the floor. And there is his bureau also fallen, crashed into the floor. And a rope from the top of the bureau to the top of his bunk bed. And my son just looking at me. And instantly, just like in Finding Nemo, where Dory figures out 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney, and you see the flash, flash, flash. I saw the process of what had gone into that, and my son had the genius idea of doing a tightrope from the top of his bureau to the top of his bunk bed, and in just, 7-10 feet. That wasn't going to work. Now let's do that with a tall tower and a canoe to New York. I cannot imagine the physics at all. The drag that is going to pull down, I just cannot imagine.
I want to think at the final spot in New York, it was like a spiral, All right, here comes the finish.
What do they do to catch them?
There's a cushion mat at the bottom, like on a slide, or a ball pit, big foam pit.
I like that idea. The ball pit. They're gonna land into that. A ball pit the size of Central Park. You're gonna have that.
People just dropping all over the place.
I love it.
Here's a question for you. What's your favorite World's Fair monument? The Eiffel Tower, the Ferris wheel, or the Sun Sphere?
That's exactly what I was going to bring up. We cannot have a show without bringing up Tennessee history and the Sun Sphere. I did not go to the World's Fair in Knoxville, but my wife, she lived in Knoxville, and she was just a tiny thing at the time. But she brings up how her parents took her to the World's Fair, and they went around to everything.
That's cool.
But I didn't get to go.
I wasn't born yet, so I didn't get to go.
I was born, but I think, I don't know. I couldn't even tell you what I was doing.
I know my mom and dad have eaten inside the Sun Sphere, but I think it's just vacant now, isn't it?
I've stood at the bottom of it. I don't know if anything's in it.
Well, if you've seen the Simpsons episode, it's full of wigs. Bart knocks it over and it busts open and it's just full of wigs.
Well, The Simpsons is a barometer for truth and certain outcomes.
Unfortunately, that's scarily true.
Right. We should go to Knoxville this summer and just crack open the Sun Sphere and see.
Oh, man.
It's going to be wigs.
What if some of these interviews we've been trying to capture, we were like, here's how we're going to get you here. We're going to interview you in the Sun Sphere. That would be cool.
Mr. Charles Frazier, we desperately want to sit and talk with you. And if it means breaking into the Sun Sphere and stealing wigs, I will do so.
That would be awesome. Well, let's talk about H.H. Holmes.
Yeah.
I got on here, Holmes is a dragon. Would you agree with that?
I circled it. I underlined it. I exclamation pointed next to it. And I said, yes, what a brilliant idea. Why don't you tell me why you think so?
Well, I listened to your podcast with honors on Spotify and Apple. Self-plug. Well, actually, it wasn't self-plug. It was a friend plug.
Yeah. Shameless. Happy.
You guys were kind of... Well, the way you all described dragons reminded me a lot of Dracula.
Yes.
And you kept saying draconian, which would be Dracula-esque, correct?
Yep. Vlad Dracul, the dragon.
And I thought when I was thinking about H.H. Holmes and the way that he lured these women in and seduced them and then charmed the police and charmed their families and lied to them and tricked them. And not only that, but how many he was able to do that to.
Yes.
I thought, man, this is Dracula. And then I thought, well, he's a dragon then, isn't he? And I wanted to link that because I'd heard y'all talk about that.
Well, dragons, in a literary metaphorical sense, are such vain, prideful, predatory creatures of ego, and that they hoard treasure, and that the treasure has no other purpose other than to continue adding to its vanity. If you look at the Epic of Beowulf, when they finally uncover the dragon's hoard, the banners, the swords, the cups, everything's tarnished and gone to ruin and waste. The dragon does nothing with it other than sleep upon it. It is nothing but a hoard that has been gathered. But to even do one thing that offends the dragon, even in the tiniest of way, is going to resort with the dragon napalming everything that is precious to you, because they are creatures of easily provoked anger and wrath as well. And H.H. Holmes cultivates his treasures, the women. And why does he cultivate them? Because they satisfy his ego, his pleasure. And when he's done with them, he's done with them. And dragons consume, they lay waste to whatever as well.
Yeah. Stories like H.H. Holmes and the story of In Cold Blood, I was thinking about those when I read those, about how we hear these stories now and people talk about how terrible people have become. But then you read something like this from over 100 years ago.
Yes.
And In Cold Blood happened in the 50s, so we're getting, 70 years ago, you know? I mean, there were some monsters about, and H.H. Holmes was terrible, especially the way he got caught. You know, he had those kids with him and they were in the trunk. But I mean, and
even after he was caught, still resorted to his charming duplicity in trying to sway judge, jury, police, and the American public, everybody into letting him go free.
Yeah. It was incredible to me when I would read it how many times he was able to manipulate the police, to an extent I could get the families because he would have them write those false letters and have the women sign them and things like that, so he had like an evidence of they just left and they said that they didn't want anything to do with you and they didn't want anything to do with me either, and the families would kind of fall for that. But the way that he was able to get out of a corner with the police was very surprising to me because they were always like, yeah, this guy's a good guy, know? I think that there was I may remember this, but I feel like that there was a time where the same detective went to interview him a second time and was already dismissing him on the way. It was basically like I'm just going to make sure that I've got record that I talked to him, So.
But I think nowadays my expectations for law enforcement is that we have such a more integrated, cohesive network of information that anybody who's immediately pulling, somebody over on a suspicion of a taillight is out or something has access to, well, what other things has this person got a history of? Or are there people that we're supposed to be looking out for right now? That there's so much more instantaneous warning about people. But even in today's world, plenty of people, could be existing in your own community, in your own classrooms, in your own churches or wherever, and that they've been guilty of doing things that nobody knows about yet. But I also think that if you're a cop and you're like a career law enforcement officer, you've probably got, personal skills or something about your personality that has drawn you into a career where you hunt down bad guys, that you investigate these things. You are not somebody who believes the BS or that you've got a pretty good BS detector. And when somebody tries to shine you on, you're going to catch them. Why are you believing this guy? In what way? But, there are always these con artists that get away with everything.
Yeah. I think that's what was surprising to me about it. It was because, I knew that they didn't have the connectivity that we have with our police today. But like you said, these guys were supposed to be experts and, this is nothing new to them. And how many of these guys had they run across, and he was just able to charm his way out of there.
Have you ever seen the movie The Usual Suspects?
No.
So there's this whole police investigation into a killer named Kaiser Sose, and we don't know what he looks like, but we bring in this batch of suspects, and we've got somebody who heard Kaiser Sose say this line. So everybody repeat the line, and we're going to try to figure out who he is. And one of the classic lines from the movie is that the best magic trick that the devil ever performed was convincing people he never existed at all. And in the movie, Kaiser Sose is sitting among you right now. He's in the room with you right now. Well, H.H. Holmes does the same thing of convincing you the devil doesn't exist. And actually, of course I'm a good guy, and I'll pay you back in just a minute. Can you hold this? Here's a skeleton.
And
then he's out of town.
Can you just deliver this for me? Thank you.
And they would do it,
That was really disturbing to me, too, when it would talk about how, like, some of those doctors would have the skeletons of these women hanging in their practice and were just completely unassuming. They had no clue that...
For years and years and years, right?
And it seems like that they were able to track one down, but the other ones they weren't,
right?
If I remember correctly.
Right.
Well, we've got his castle pulled up here, and I think that, man, you talk about a person that was premeditating all of this. He designed this building around A, how can I murder these people? B, how can I dispose of them quickly? And then C, how can I trap them in? Because I can remember reading about how the hallways were random and there would be like random turns here and there, and how
light spaced at weird angles to increase darkness.
Yeah. And then it seems like I can remember Larson talking about how some of the doors you could lock and unlock from the outside, but not from the inside.
Right.
And some of the people that Holmes was letting out rooms to for extended times, he would go and lock the doors at night so that they couldn't get out, and he was, what's the word I'm trying to think of here? I mean, this is like
insidious.
Yeah.
Absolutely insidious.
Very disturbing. I can remember at the end of the book just being so angry when I would read his parts, because I was thinking,
Yeah.
this is a sick person.
Well, he not only compartmentalized the rooms of the building, but he also compartmentalized the process of the building too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And nobody knew more than what their own part was. And then he would not pay people, so they'd get mad, and then they'd leave the job, and he would hire new people to do the next part. So he kept, secreting, covering up his tracks for it. And he even designed his own furnace for it too, right?
Yeah.
So it was like a furnace within, like a double-walled system to prevent smoke or heat or whatever from raising any red flags in the community.
Well, even one of the he had the safe that he would gas those women in, and even in one of the investigations, the police came to interrogate him. They walked into the safe, saw the gas jet, and they were just kind of like, man, that's weird. And that was it. And remember, though, he had it walled so that you couldn't hear anyone scream inside of it. Do you know what I think scares me a lot about H.H. Holmes is you cannot say that he was dumb.
No,
Do you know what I'm saying?
he was not.
You have to say this man was very intelligent.
Yes.
Because he manipulated this every step of the way. Like you were saying, the way that he would scheme to get this done for him essentially for free,
Yes.
I don't know if he had the money. He did have money. I don't know that he had it to build it this way, but he was able to build this murder castle, as they call it, to his desire. And this is going to sound the way that he had it, though, when he would murder them and sell the skeletons, it's like, that's smart.
Wish I'd thought of that.
Oh, no. And this is recorded.
Not really. No, not really. But at the same time, it's wicked. It is cruel, but it's also clever.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. These skeletons would be sent across the country. I think one was in Stanford at the College of Medicine there.
Yeah.
And at that time, there's no DNA technology. There's no way to track this at all, It's just incredible. It's scary because that there are people still like this.
Yeah.
I think that's what's terrifying.
Yeah. We always joke around with, you get those really smart kids in class, and I think we always joke around with the idea of making sure they never use their intellect for evil, for the dark side or whatever. But H.H. Holmes absolutely did.
Yeah.
And you talk about not only with gratifying his own wicked lusts for violence or for whatever else, but he also managed to do this while building up a good reputation and a community presence.
Yeah.
And he's swindling people out of money, but they also don't hate him.
Right.
Until he abandons debts, and then there's a story that's going to last in that community that's never going to leave the community.
Yeah.
They never tell other people in the next city about it. But he charms people. He gets so many women to fall in love with him, to do whatever he wants, to sign over wealth, anything.
Yeah. And tricks the family.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he had businesses he was renting out to the bottom floor. I just remembered that. He had that pharmacy or apothecary type thing that he had in the ground floor. And then remember he was running that mail order business where he was sending basically snake oil out there. He was I don't want to say this because I feel like it's going to make me sound insensitive, but the way that he did this was efficient. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He had it mapped out and was every ounce of his production, I guess.
Yeah.
He was trying to make money off of, or he was trying to get that gratification off of.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? That's essentially what it was. Because I think that he got, what am I trying to say here?
Well, for me, I know I joke the whole wish I'd thought of that. No, FBI guy, I really don't wish I'd thought of that. But to sit here and read about it, to be so engaged by a story like this, and to marvel at that on some level, you are impressed. And I mean, we don't want him to win.
No.
But at the same time, we so often watch our villainous characters that you're kind of rooting for the guy because you've been ensorcelled by his charm as well.
Yeah.
And you bring up the efficiency of getting rid of the bodies and that he's making money by selling their skeletons after having already consumed them. You can't help but be impressed by his wickedness. And it's not that you want to replicate it, but you just kind of marvel at it.
Yeah. Well, it's not that I don't think money was his gain, but it's that, I don't know how else to say this. It's almost like a sexual pleasure for him. Do you know what I'm saying? Because he got the women, like you said, he consumed them in every way imaginable. He consumed them sexually, and then he consumed their bodies. Literally, he killed them and then stripped their bodies of everything.
Yeah.
And then he's doing that to his subletters. He's consuming them somehow, and then he was sending out this snake oil. And
I think the money is not his real treasure for his dragon horde. The money is just the means to increasing and promoting that way of life.
Like knowing that I can do this and no one can catch me.
Right.
Yeah, that satisfaction, that high that he's getting off of that.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he's always changing his name too.
That's what I had written down on here. I wanted to go back through and find his pseudonyms, his names that he had changed it. They weren't all so drastically different. They were a little bit similar here and there.
Well, I told you I was telling Preston and Kevin about the book, and I was telling them about how he changed his names. And I told them, I don't even know that H.H. Holmes is his real name.
Right.
I think that that's another pseudonym that he had. And that's just the one that's kind of stuck with him because he essentially made his name in Chicago with H.H. Holmes. You know,
it does ring like one too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Later on, when you get into The Stand at some point, you're going to meet a character who is wicked, deceitful, and he does the same kind of thing that he always, every time he moves on to a new zone, picks up a new nom de plume and or nom de guerre, I guess, in his case. And it's never completely different. There's always a little bit that's similar to it. And wouldn't you think that people would eventually connect the dots? But they don't.
Yeah.
With somebody like H.H. Holmes, they don't.
Yeah. It kind of does remind me, though, of this book I read over Christmas break about people who were trying to fake their deaths. And they were talking about how hard it is now because essentially if you want to make money, you have to register yourself somehow, you know, and it's just so hard to lay under the radar now. So I was just wondering, like, could someone operate like this now? It'd be really difficult, I think, you know.
I'm not a clinician. I'm not anything criminally detective related, but I feel like I've heard somewhere that the criminal in this case wants he has to leave some sort of thumbprint behind because it's like he wants to know that
People
he got away with it. It's like an ownership thing. And, you know, even in Gatsby, which he's not an extreme criminal, but when Gatsby reinvents himself, he was originally James Gatz, but then he changes it into J. Gatsby. And that's not such a different name. It's like he can't quite leave that behind. Like he has to have a little bit of, see, I was still there.
Right, yeah. And even when the World's Fair arrived, he took advantage of that and was renting out rooms for the World's Fair.
What did you think about Burnham and his depiction in the novel, which is, I mean, so diametrically opposed to H.H. Holmes?
What I can remember from Burnham was he was like a workaholic almost, right? Yeah. And he was so consumed by making sure that this fair was perfect. I mean, obviously H.H. Holmes stands out the most to me, you know.
Every chapter in Larson's book, it goes from Burnham to Holmes, Burnham to Holmes. And every time I would get done with one chapter, it was like, no, I don't want to go to the next guy. But then I would be in the next guy's chapter and think, no, I don't want to go to the next guy.
Yeah.
But I do think Holmes is the more engaging story because it's so criminal and wicked. And
yeah, well, that goes into what I got here. I was reading a couple of, not really like reviews. It was more of like personal readers' takes on Goodreads, but they were talking about how they felt like Larson wanted to tell the tale of Burnham, but the publishers had him connected to Larson, or I'm sorry, to H.H. Holmes to sell books. But I don't think that that's the case.
Yeah.
You know, I've read other Larsons, and he's always, the thing that I like about Erik Larson is he always tries to find two parallel events that intersect.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
That's cool.
It's kind of like Thunderstruck. He has the Dr. Crippen murders in London, but then at the same time, he's got the invention of the Marconi wireless system and how these two things intersected at the right time. And that's how they caught this murderer, because of the invention of the Marconi wireless, you know. I've read Dead Wake, and it's like about, you've got World War I happening, and Winston Churchill is kind of a figure in that. And then you've got the Lusitania and the selling of this like desire to be the best or the elite on the naval, or the, what am I trying to say here?
Are you talking about like maritime supremacy?
Yeah. You've got maritime supremacy. You have maritime supremacy with the Lusitania and how they're trying to get above the Germans because they had captured that. But then you've also got the war starting and Churchill and the U-boats and all that, and how they all intersected at this one point in time, you know.
Yeah.
The only one that has really not been like that I've read so far has been in the Garden of Beast, which is my favorite one of his, to be honest with you. But
more than Devil in the White City.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was just really interesting to me in the Garden of Beasts, because it was the rise of Hitler. You know, we always read about Nazis kind of when they're at their peak, you know, when the Holocaust is going on and all of these things, but it was really the genesis of Hitler, and he really stepped that through, how that was possible, how that happened. But it was told from William Dodd, the American ambassador in Berlin's perspective, and it was kind of from Cordell Hull's perspective as well, you know. So I think it was really interesting to see these correspondence. And then also there was like this element of William Dodd's daughter fell in love with a KGB spy for the Soviet Union, and how they kind of manipulated, the Russians manipulated that that relationship so that they could influence, I guess, like America to an extent, and get more information from the American point of view and all that. Yeah, it's really,
Yikes.
I think you like politics and things like
yeah.
that. I think that you would like it, to be honest with you, especially if you like this Larson. I know that you don't read a lot of nonfiction, but
well, I haven't, but it, you know, you have been one getting me to read more of it, and I love that you've done that, because that would be a genre, that would be an entire section of everything that I'm missing out on.
Yeah.
I would not have originally picked Devil in the White City as a book to pull off the shelf and read. And you telling us about it 2 years ago, there were so many times I've seen it on the shelf at McKay's, and I would just never have picked it up. But thank God Drew Haston came along and told me to read it, because it's a book that I have thought about many times over the last few years. And you bringing up Larson's technique of looking for the intersection of makes me think of a great moment from The West Wing, when Toby is so hard fighting for the National Arts Endowment. Why would you want to get rid of a country funding artists? And his case is that a country's greatness intersects with other things like its art, and that you look at the Elizabethan age intersecting with Shakespeare and Marlowe, and you look at all of these others. Look at the Italian Renaissance is not just a rebirth of politics and a country's greatness, but it's also because of art with Leonardo and the other greats. What if a country's greatness intersects with its art? And maybe it's technology as well. But what if maybe a country's darkness is when it's intersecting with its H.H. Holmes or it's Charles Manson or, you know, others.
I also like the intersections that Larson does, because I don't know why I value it so much. That's what I want my students to do.
Oh, yeah.
You know, is to find these parallels and see how these stories we are reading intersect each other, you know?
Yeah.
So I like that he does that.
That's the hallmark of education, is looking beyond the page. Why does it matter beyond the page, and what other connections do we see?
Yeah.
I always tell kids, you read Beowulf, great. Nobody cares that you read Beowulf in high school. That's not the check mark for education. It's, what does Beowulf teach me about who I am now, where we came from, why we act the way we do, where we're going next. How do I see connections between the dragon in The Hobbit and a character like H.H. Holmes or Dracula or whatever? That's the hallmark of education.
Yeah. I would love for one of your honor students. We need to get, Wyatt?
Oh, yeah.
We need to get him to do like a presentation over H.H. Holmes and smog.
I love it. I love it. He would totally do a 3-minute documentary. He would totally do it.
Oh, there you go.
And he would kill it, too.
Yeah.
Not in an H.H. Holmes way. He would do it in a great way.
No pun intended.
Wyatt, I'm going to need to check your hotel.
Just so happens his family owns one.
Don't mind that footprint on the inside of the door.
Is that even his real name?
Right.
Is that even his
Could
real
be.
name? He's a California transplant, isn't he?
What if his real name is Byatt Waylock? It could be something different, you know.
What did you think of Larson's writing, though? You and I have talked about this a lot. This is one of those books that you and I have stuck together with on a lot of inside jokes.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people who just randomly pop up and we've said, no, that guy's H.H. Holmes. But I know that you always talk about how dense his writing was.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
That was a new thing for me. Probably because I've also been in a lull for a while of reading more entertaining things. And then, of course, the things you read for your high school classes are not necessarily as challenging as some of the things you would read for literary merit or even for, National Book Award merit or whatever. And then you suggested Larson's book, and it is so tightly, densely packed with not just historical information and relevance, but just his sentences as well. Like, I felt worn out after so many pages
He's
of
a
reading.
good writer. Yeah.
He's great. But there was, you tell your students to vary up your sentence structure with long, short, long, short, something like that, because long sentence after long sentence after long is going to wear a reader out.
Yeah.
If you even go to Atticus Finch's closing remarks in To Kill a Mockingbird and you look at the types of sentences he's using there, it's indicative of Atticus Finch being such an intellectual person. But if I wrote L212 sentences like that all the time, you're going to wear a person out. Larson is such a rich storyteller of both stories, but it is just so much at times that I did find myself having to pause after a few chapters and just take a break.
Yeah. I talked to Russ Switcher about narrative fiction writing because I feel like that Larson does try to make his read more like a novel as opposed to like if you read Dr. Witcher's book, it's like a journalistic article. It's like an extended journalistic article. And I talked to him about that because we talked about that with Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. Is that objectivity? As a journalist, that's my ultimate goal, is to present this objectively. And so he was talking about how, because I asked him had he ever considered writing a more narrative style, and we talked about how you can fill in the blanks sometimes with what these people are saying, and he told me that he felt like that if you were presenting it narratively with something that was plausible, then you're still keeping that element of objectivity, like this is something that he would say. But if you're going like way out there, then you're just getting wrapped up into telling the story as opposed to presenting it. I thought that was kind of an interesting take because I've wondered about that. I think that Larson's done extensive research, and I'm sure that a lot of what he has in quotes is what people had said in letters or whatever. But I also think that he's probably given some quotes that he's maybe some pieces of dialogue that he's created. Do you know what I'm saying? Or like I'm thinking more of like maybe like a narrative type of like expositional type thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just describing what they're doing throughout their day or something like that. Anyways, I didn't know what you thought about that.
Well, his book is certainly not one that's like trying to crack open something new. Like we knew about H.H. Holmes. We knew about the World's Fair. So it's not like it's being presented in entirely objective, let me teach you about this. It's not just informational. There has to be something entertaining or engaging about it as well. I wouldn't know anything about whether he used artistic license for dialogue or personal interaction or anything. I'm not at all sure about that. But I do remember reading somewhere that every retelling is like a new spin. Every retelling of history, every translation of the Bible, you got to make selective choices about what word choices to use, and that's a personal choice that was made then and there. And sometimes those choices alter the telling of a story. So is any retelling, is any historical retelling 100% objective? I don't know that you can escape that, being a human being telling something that you didn't personally live through, right? But in the scheme of things, I have to believe Larson did his very best with that. So, yeah. Because it feels more objective. It does feel like he demonizes H.H. Holmes while at the same time as presenting him as some marvelous, terrible creature. But he also seems to heroize. I keep wanting to call him Bo Burnham. Daniel Burnham. That's a completely different person.
He did have some pretty good songs written in there. Pretty funny.
He does continue to heroize Mr. Burnham in his sometimes stoic ways or his sometimes hardworking ways. That Burnham is a creature to be praised. H.H. Holmes is a creature that we need to have a cautionary expose about.
It's almost kind of like a contrast of here's what's on the surface, here's what's going on underneath type of thing.
Right.
You've read The Wager by David Grann, which is something that you and I have read together. Do you remember enough to say which one you preferred? Because I've read 3 David Grann books.
Okay.
And I've read 4 Erik Larsons now.
Okay.
So
I've only read one of each. I definitely, if I had to pick one of the two, I preferred Devil in the White City. But which of the two was a more challenging read for me? Devil in the White City.
Yeah.
I did like The Wager, but I felt like there were many times that I was rereading parts that I had already read earlier in the telling of it. And not because David Grann is a bad storyteller. I'm sure he was just going back through this repetitive, drudging experience of the men being lost at sea and considering mutiny. I feel like both stories are equally valid, necessary stories to be told. I think they're both really engaging. But I don't know. I feel like I'm won over more by Devil in the White City, even though it's a read that wore me out more than The Wager did. Yeah. What about you?
I think I prefer Larson. One thing I do like about David Grann is he structures his stories differently based off of what he's telling about. You know, when you read Killers in the Flower Moon, he kind of advances sometimes and then has to reverse back to what he was talking about, because you almost have to know what happened in the future to get a full picture of what is happening in the past, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then in The Lost City of Z, he alternated, which I thought was really cool, between the original search for the Lost City of Z and his own investigation of these people that just disappeared looking for it, you know? And I like that, how he alternated each chapter, because you would kind of go back and forth, you know? And then The Wager was a lot more straightforward, like this happened and it was more linear.
Okay.
I think, though, with Larson, it's a question that I asked Nathan about with Charles Frazier, how we felt like when we were reading Cold Mountain, it was such a dense book, and it was such a trudge to get through. Like, we enjoyed it, but it was such a trudge. But then when we read these other ones, we're like, oh yeah, I like this one. You know, it's different. Oh, yeah. And I asked him, do you think that it's different, or do you think that we know what to expect? Sort of like with McCarthy, you know, is McCarthy's books, the style written that much differently, or have we gotten used to reading Cormac McCarthy's writing and we know what to expect? And I wonder that with Larson, if my first one, because that was my first one, Devil in the White City, if I kind of had an idea of what I was getting into, and I was able to get, because when I read Thunderstruck, that was the second one that I read, I zoomed through that one. And I remember thinking, this isn't as dense as Devil in the White City, but I think that it might have been. I just think that I was kind of prepared. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
is Thunderstruck the newest one?
No, the newest one is the one about the Civil War submarine type thing. Okay. Yeah. But you know, when I go to my bookshelf, I see people. There's people there. And when I open Erik Larson, I am Erik Larson, and Erik Larson is me.
That's right.
No, but in all seriousness, though, like, I know who Erik Larson is, and I know, and one thing I do read that I usually don't in fiction compared to nonfiction is I like reading the acknowledgments in the nonfiction, and Erik Larson's a funny dude. And when I read his acknowledgments, he's a lot more loose with his humor. And so I've been able to pinpoint in his reading now when he's like kind of giving like a sly little joke here, you know? And so when I read Dead Wake, it was kind of, there would be like some subtle jokes, you know? And I would be like, okay, that's pretty funny, you know? Like so I think when I was originally reading Gran and Larson and kind of alternating between the two, I was leaning toward David Gran, but the more that I kind of understood Larson and how he wrote, I think I would prefer him over David Gran.
Okay. Lost City of Z is one of my like upcoming ones. So but
I really enjoyed it.
So far, Wager is the only David Gran that I've read, but that was going to be my next one. I don't currently have an Erik Larson book in my queue for anything to come up, but I had thought about the Civil War one.
I think I'm going to read The Dead and the Vile next. It's about Winston Churchill managing, I guess, England during World War II.
Maybe I should read that. That sounds more like it would be in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Well, I want to read it next because the last Larson I read was In the Garden of Beast, and I feel like that would be almost like a sequel to that.
Okay.
Because in my mind, In the Garden of Beast, which we talk all the time about making our books in our heads like a cinema type thing, you know, In the Garden of Beast to me was the most cinema-esque that I've read of his, and so I think that was one reason I liked it so much, because I was able to kind of put these people together, you know.
You referenced that on your rundown here of Mr. DiCaprio having the rights for developing the movie, and that the original idea was to have him play H.H. Holmes.
I think so, yeah.
But when I look at pictures of the historical H.H. Holmes, he is not at all, like physically, it doesn't look like a Leonardo DiCaprio character. But when I read it, I absolutely see Leonardo DiCaprio with a small mustache and a small little beard, charming and swindling these people out of their lives and their fortunes and stuff. I feel like I way struggle to see Keanu Reeves in the role of Burnham, though.
Yeah, is that what they said that he was going to be? I thought that I couldn't find it when I was going back, because I can remember reading that when we had finished Devil in the White City, and I couldn't remember what they had said, and I didn't find it today, but I thought that's what they had said, that he would be Burnham.
I was trying to think, okay, well, who would you cast? Because I do keep seeing the picture of Mr. Burnham in my head, but I don't know that I see a good actor playing him. I'm sure there are plenty. I just don't know that I'm picturing one.
Do you know who would be a good H.H. Holmes? Tom Hardy.
Oh.
He would be good at that. I could see him slipping into that.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. What about Burnham? Who would be your pick?
Who would you pick?
I don't know. That's why I was struggling with this.
I think Leo would be a good Burnham.
You think he would be a good Burnham?
I think so,
instead?
yeah. But I just think he's such a good actor. I could see him do either one. You know,
I just really get the impression while reading this that Burnham he was so dedicated to the task of making this happen, and that he's such a widely respected, calmer, stoic, I'm a worker, designer kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't see him being such a rich, attractive personality.
Sure. Yeah.
He seems like he would be a quieter, reserved person, and I don't know who I would pick for that.
Matt Damon.
I'm having a hard time picturing Matt Damon as Odysseus in Christopher Nolan's upcoming Iliad movie.
Yeah, I didn't know he was doing that.
So Nolan doing this, huge epic movie based on Homer's Iliad has picked Matt Damon to be Odysseus. And I had seen one of the production shots of him in this crested helmet and looking back over his shoulder, and I was instantly bought in at that point. But I think from what I've seen of production footage so far, that it may look back at some of the wartime siege of Troy pictures, but then here he is 10 years later as a bedraggled, haggard man who is trying to voyage back home and just get back home. And he looks, different in that scenario too. I don't know. Christopher Nolan, amazing movie maker, and his casting choices and everything has been great so far. So he's probably going to win me over. I just don't know who I would pick for Burnham.
I don't know.
But I would love to see Christopher Nolan do A Devil in the White City. That would be cool.
Well, I read today that Scorsese is going to do it. Yeah, that's what I had read today. The article was from January 25th, I think, of this year. But they said that 20th Century had picked up the rights to this, and that Leo and Scorsese were doing it together.
Which they did Killers of the Flower Moon. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say that. That's something that I have liked about him having the movie rights to that, because he has the movie rights to Killers in the Flower Moon, which means Leonardo DiCaprio is a reader.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, I mean, you would have to be to get these books.
Right?
Yeah.
But he's also a cultivator of young 25-year-old girls.
Oh, no.
Up until they're 25, and then they disappear.
Oh, no. So perfect casting for H.H. Holmes.
We're going to stop somewhere in Sparta one day and meet a guy named Leonardo DiCaprio.
L.L. Caprio. L.L. Dawson. Let's call back to his Titanic name.
And then I'm going to buy whatever it is he's selling me, I'm sure.
You know, I know that we are almost done, but we have not talked about Buffalo Bill's rodeo outside of the World's Fair, and I hate that we left that part out.
Well, how can you not? What an iconic guy, right?
And he was outselling the World's Fair.
Outdoing them. Of course he did. Man, can you imagine people were only showing up for a while there just to see Buffalo Bill?
Yeah.
What an American icon.
I will say that I've seen pictures of the White City, which I'm sure you've looked those up too, and it did look like it would be something that I would want to go see.
Yeah. I was also really impressed by all of the challenges, the physical and constructional challenges that they had to navigate in order to just pull this affair off. The landscape was not ideal. The innovation of how do you build such titanic skyscraper structures? Well, you got to do foundations like this. And then when you're putting on the White City, you're having to like bring that same kind of architectural strategy too. How do you pull off such a wonder? And then wasn't it the magical island? Wasn't that part of it too? The little isle?
Well, it was like, I couldn't find that guy's name when I was pulling some of this stuff together, but he had designed Central Park in New York.
Yes,
and
that's right.
They had him design that, and for some reason they wanted that Japanese garden on that island, and he was like, "You can't do that."
Right.
And I want to remember he quit over it, didn't he?
Yeah, and he was going through so many health problems, and I felt like his was a really tragic story too. That he had this perfect vision that was going to be pinpoint brought to life by this specific flower and this specific plant.
Right, yeah. So I was fascinated with that because I had never really thought about people designing parks like that, you know, like this plant, this tree is here for a reason, you know.
Yeah.
And I know that there are gardeners who do designs so that they can present something artistic or whatever, you know. I mean, I think about Versailles and things like that, you know. But to have a park, that was really cool, I thought. And I can't get the internet to work. I'm trying to pull up this guy's name.
And so many people were competing to have that little magical island. And didn't Teddy Roosevelt want a spot on it? Was it Teddy Roosevelt? I think so,
yeah.
And like everybody was like, no, here's my idea of why I should have the island. Was it the guy who did?
I'm sorry,
Olmsted.
Olmsted, yeah.
Yes.
Frederick Olmsted was the designer of Central Park and of essentially the entire landscaping of. And he wanted it to look. How did he describe it? It was like he kind of wanted it to be like the English countryside, like manicured but wild at the same time. Right. Yeah.
Was it Olmsted's vision to have the little boats in the water too?
He wanted the boats, but remember there was the big dispute over the engines because they wanted gas powered, and I think he wanted electric powered maybe because it was quieter. He was wanting it to be quiet and peaceful. Yeah. And remember the day before the fair opened, those guys came in there and weren't thinking and mowed the yard, and he lost it over that. Yeah.
Yes. And even so much of the fair wasn't ready to be opened by opening day, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That they had to like kind of hide some stuff essentially.
Wouldn't it be amazing to have a legitimate World's Fair somewhere near enough that we could go to it and it'd be open 24 hours a day and you could walk through just this magical recreation of whether it was, they had like parts of it that were distinctly other cultures, right? They even brought in pygmies.
I know, that's crazy.
They brought in pygmy human beings to show off as like creatures.
Yeah. Like they basically like, it was like a zoo. They let them free in the thing, you know, like the part of the park. They were like, here's our pygmy exhibit.
A human zoo. So bizarre. Ray Bradbury would have appreciated that.
The freak show.
The freak show. I saw the illustrated man and a pygmy. But just the idea of being able to walk through this facade recreation of some idyllic dream, some idyllic city. I think that's really enchanting.
I would have liked to have seen it.
Yeah.
It's something I'd like to have seen.
To be able to just walk through it any hour of the day, get some food.
Yeah.
Don't you feel like Disney like has tried to recreate that in aspects of their park
Yeah, I'm
too?
sure. Yeah.
So maybe it would feel kind of like walking through Disney.
I can remember, was it Burnham's wife describing walking through the park like at sunset when things had closed down, and it seemed like a very, like you said, idyllic place.
Yeah.
All right. Let's rate this, baby.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
How many stars out of 5?
I feel bad if I don't give it a 5, but you don't like decimal points. So I'm going to land in the 4, but it's an incredibly high 4 for me.
That's where I'm at. I'm at a 4.
Okay.
On the 1 to 20 psycho scale, I've got it at about a 15.
Okay. That's where I was.
Yeah,
15.
so
yeah.
I think that I didn't give it a 5 because I can remember it being so dense, like we were talking about, that there were a few chapters that I had to close it and be like, I'm going to have to come back to this later. You know, because, But I think I'm a better reader now than I was when I first went around and read it. And I've thought about rereading it, to be honest with you, which you know that I don't really reread a lot of stuff. And it's kind of been one that I've thought, I'd like to go back and kind of see what I think about that now. You know?
I always love the part where they're looking through the plans of what could be featured, and one of the men just kind of steps away and has to daub at himself because he's so overcome with the potential for it, and he's like, oh, that we could even do this. I like that something this grandiose moved a human being that much. And reading about it, I appreciate Larson's intricate level of detail, his juggling, his intersection of characters and stories in America, two different competing visions. It's an amazing thing that he was able to pull off here.
The big question. This is my favorite one because I feel like my reactions are always so... How much would you pay for this at McKay's?
So the first time you asked me this question, I said, I don't know. I think Jason Crockett's really stingy. Turns out I'm not. I spend way too much.
Oh, no.
Rather than I should. How much would I have paid for this at McKay's? Beforehand, nothing. I would have paid nothing for it. I would have left it on the shelf. Knowing what it is now, if I didn't have a copy of it, I'd want to pay $8 to $10 for a paperback of it. For a paperback of it.
Yeah. Oh, what about a hardback?
Yeah, but if I could find a nice hardback of it, I'm in the $17 to $20
Wow.
Yeah.
That's expensive at McKay's.
I understand. But then again, is it at McKay's? Because costs have gone up.
Yeah.
And you can't even find a copy of Project Hail Mary that's not $17 to $20.
That is true.
But if I could find a good, clean, hardback copy of this, $17 to $20, if I didn't have another copy and I've got a feature shelf, yeah, I'd pay $17 to $20 for it. Why? It's a good hard copy version of it. You open it up and there's a pop out of the White City.
Okay,
what are you going to pay?
Well, you're talking about a pop out of that. I would like a pop out of H.H. Holmes saying hello.
Hello.
Have you tried my new oil?
What if you open it up and it's a pop out of the White City, but when you get to the end and you go to close it, that cover opens up into the murder castle.
Oh, man.
With a little moving chute.
I would pay $20 $25 to $30 for something like that.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it exists, though.
No.
We could make it exist.
Contact the publisher right now and tell them they're sleeping on a cash cow. We know at least 2 guys who are going to buy this.
Please pay us for this idea. I got a car to pay for.
I've got $6,000 to make up for this week.
Oh, man. Okay, I think I would pay a paperback. I think I would pay $5. I think I would pay $5 for
That's
it.
fair.
I think for me on my McKay scale, $5 is like my peak. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
If I'm paying over that for something at McKay's, especially a paperback, I'm really wanting it. So
I need to find it on the shelf at McKay's and see what the paperback goes for now.
I need to go see too, because the Nashville McKay's usually has a lot of the paperback. They used to have a lot of the hardcovers, because I don't know if you've noticed over here on my Larson's, I've got paperback, hardback, paperback, hardback, and I was kind of wanting to make it all hardcovers. And so I thought, well, I know that they've got the hardcovers at Nashville McKay's, and I went, and they were gone. They were all gone. I had the chance to get a hardback at Nashville McKay's. I was going to buy it, and I opened it up, and it smelled like poop.
Oh,
yeah.
No way.
And I had to put it back.
Yes.
And I think it was like maybe $3 or $4, because I remember it was so cheap that I thought, am I going to put up with this poop smell?
No.
Yeah.
$3 or $4 is way too expensive for poop. That's way too much to pay
New
for poop.
scale. How much would you pay for this if it smelled like poop?
I'm going to say McKay's has the free bin outside, and even if I found the hardback in the free bin and it smelled like poop, it's probably going right back. Even the fact that I just said probably, it's going back in the free bin. I bought my hardback copy of Cold Mountain, and I found mine in the free bin.
Oh, did you really?
My hardback copy.
Wow.
But it smelled like formaldehyde.
Ooh.
And I didn't notice that until I got it home and read it.
Yeah.
And I sat on the front porch that summer reading it, and the formaldehyde smell was getting to me.
Yeah.
But I guess I had it open enough that it evaporated. It doesn't smell like it don't smell no more.
It would be fitting if the formaldehyde smell came from Devil in the White City.
Yes.
I bought my Cold Mountain in St. Augustine at a bookstore. There's a used bookstore in Uptown, and gosh, I overpaid for it, and I knew I did when I was getting it, but the old lady that was working there was watching me like a hawk.
Oh, and you feel so compelled.
I did, yeah, and I knew that she was kind of one of those people that, if you're not going to buy anything, get out of my store. And so I was like, well, I know that we were about to read that, so I went ahead and bought it, but now I got a good story for it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. We got to say it like Mr. Burnham and Mr. H.H. Holmes. You be H.H. Holmes and I'll be Burnham. I'm going to say it like he would.
Let me think here. I don't know how to say it.
Thank you.
Oh, man. This is the best new segment of this show.
Why have we not been signing off as the characters this whole time?
Oh, I'm trying to think of a way to say this very charming.
How you're Leonardo DiCaprio as H.H. Holmes.
I almost went, thank you, old sport. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Was that good?
I love it. That was it. Oh, one
man.
take Haston. Hey, if you're a fan of good conversations and fresh takes on literature and the kind of school stories that stick with you long after the bell rings, well, I've got a podcast for you. It's called With Honors, and it's where my high school students have taken the microphone, not just to analyze books or talk about our lessons, but to reflect on what we've learned this year, have conversations about what surprised them, how our literature and classroom experiences connect to their real lives. And we talk about everything from symbolism and Poe to the pros and cons of class pets, and all through the voices of smart, curious students who have learned to speak their minds. New episodes drop regularly every week, and everyone is a snapshot of what it looks like when students take ownership of their own learning and have a little fun while they're at it. You can find With Honors on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our YouTube channel, so check them out.